Christy. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to day 9 of my 2025 holiday card series. Today I'm going to be making a card using Lawn Fawn's treat cart add-on coffee, treat cart add-on tacos, coaster critters, car critters Christmas add-on, Christmas before and afters, and merry mice. I've stamped my images in Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink and I'm going to be coloring with my Copic markers. I've got a second panel off screen that I will be coloring using the same shades that I will use on screen. So it just has a few extra additional images. I'm going to jump right in with my polar bears. I'm going to use E40, E50 and E51 for these guys. I want them to look white like polar bears, but just to have a little bit of a creamy undertone to them. So I'm starting with that E51, laying in a little bit of shadow with that. Then I'm going to blend out with the E50. And then I'll come in with that E40 and pull that color a little bit further into the white cardstock, but I'm going to still leave quite a bit of white cardstock showing for an extra highlight, and that will ensure that they really do look like white polar bears. And by the way, I am going to have a video next week on coloring bears, so if you're interested in more ways to do that, make sure to come back for that. While I have these marker shades out, I'm going to go ahead and color anything else that I want to be white. I wanted to go with a very simple, traditional Christmas color palette today. I've been doing a lot of non-traditional color palettes for my Christmas cards lately, and they are so much fun. I love using a non-traditional color palette, but every once in a while, it's nice to come back to the basics. So I'm just going to do red, green, and white with a little bit of brown thrown in. So anything else that I want to be white, I'm going to go ahead and add these shades to. I'll do every other stripe on the awning of the treat cart. I'll also do the main middle section of the lower part of the treat cart. I'm going to do the inner part of the sandwich board sign. I'll do some of my gifts and some of the baubles on the trees. Of course, the marshmallows have to be white. So I'm just hopping around here and there, doing every other stripe on my candy cane. And on all of these images, I'm going to color them like I did with the bears, leaving a little bit of that plain white cardstock showing for an extra bit of highlight and to make them look white. Then I'm going to bring in some pink tones to add some rosy cheeks to my polar bears. It's an extra step that you don't have to do, but I just think it makes your critters really come alive and just gives them a bit more personality, makes them seem more human, even though they're obviously not, they're bears. But I guess what I mean is it makes them seem more relatable. Because obviously polar bears wouldn't be shopping in a Christmas tree farm, but that's what these polar bears are going to be doing today. So once I've got my rosy cheeks laid in, I'm going to come in with some red tones. I'm using R35, R37, and R39. And because I am sticking to that very simple, very traditional Christmas color palette, we are going to have a lot of red images on this card. So I'm just bouncing around and choosing which images are going to be red. I'm doing every other stripe on my awning. I'm going to do every other light on my string of lights. I'll do a bunch of the bows on the Christmas gifts. And then I'm also doing some of the baubles on the tree, just kind of counting to make sure I'm saving room for one extra color. I did the bow on my Christmas wreath, and I'm also going to do the mug that has the marshmallows in the top. I did my shadows first with the R39 on all of those. Then I'm blending out with the mid-tone, the R37. And then the R35 is going to be my highlight. I really like this combo. I've been gravitating toward it a lot this year. It has a little bit of a cooler undertone than my go-to red combo in years past. And so it gives it more of like a cranberry feel to me. which I think is quite nice and just nice for something different. So I'm just going around and filling in the rest of these images, adding those bright pops of red throughout the card. Red is such a dynamic and eye-catching color. I think it really brings a lot of festivity to a card. So I'm making sure to add nice little pops here and there. I'm also going to do every other stripe on my candy cane with just that R35 since the areas to color in are so small. Fill in the rest of my images, and then I did decide to do the framework of the treat cart in red as well. At first I wasn't going to. I was going to do something different, but I just didn't want to introduce any extra colors into the palette that I had in mind. And I didn't want to do green because we're going to have a lot of green with the Christmas trees that we're coloring with those extra images off screen as well. And so I just decided to do the whole cart in red. And by the way, I just went back and counted, and this is my 10th card using that treat cart. I just love that treat cart, and I think it is such a versatile image. I've used it for cards depicting every single season. I've done it as a flower cart in the spring. I've done it as an ice cream cart in the summer. I've done it as a coffee cart for book themes and other kind of fall type cards. And I've also done a couple different Christmas cards with it now. So I just think it works year round, and it just has so many possibilities to turn that little cart into. So I moved on to another green combo. This is going to be one of two green combos. So I'm using YG11 and YG17 for just a couple of the smaller accessory images, like my little Keurig. I'm going to do that in those two shades. And then I'm also going to do every other light on my string of lights. I'll do some of my gifts and ribbons. I'm also going to do the sandwich board that has the Christmas specials on it. And by the way, that sandwich board is completely customizable. I stamped the Christmas special and the candy cane latte in there. There are so many different things that you can stamp into that to also customize the treat cart scenes. I also did all the remaining baubles on my Christmas tree. I just wanted a green combo that was a little bit brighter and fresher, a little bit more yellow toned, so that it will still stand out against the traditional greens that I'll be using. So I am going to bring in a little bit of dark brown. I need to do the tree trunks and also the wheels on the treat cart. I'm going to do those in dark brown as well because I didn't want to bring black into the scene. So I'm using E25, E27, and E29, and starting with the E29, blending out with the E27, and then filling in with the E25 for a highlight. The E25 is still pretty dark though. I will also use the E25 for my little gingerbread man, and then I'll bring in the E23 to blend that out. I just used 2 shades on that since it was really small. So my last combo is going to be a more traditional green. I'm going to use G21, G24, and G28. I gravitate toward this a lot for Christmas trees and Christmas greenery like wreaths or holly leaves or anything like that because I just think it kind of screams Christmas with that deep, rich green from the G28 and then the softer shades of the G24 and G21. So I'm using that G28 for my shadows for all of my trees and that wreath. And I'm placing my shadows on the wreath on the inner part where it wouldn't get as much light. And then for the trees, I just put it at the bottom of each of the sections to keep it simple. And then I am going to blend up with the G24 for my midtone. For the one that is decorated, which is kind of like the sample tree in the Christmas tree lot to show them what they can do at home just to bring the festivity to the lot. That one I'm just going to be really careful to color around those baubles so that I don't get any green into especially the white baubles on that tree. And then once I'm done, I will bring in that second sheet of images that I colored off screen just to show you, and I'll trim all of these out with their matching dies. For my background, I'm going to be using some pattern paper from the All the Sparkles 6x6 pad. So I'm going to tear out this blue piece, which I'm going to use as my sky. And then I also wanted a contrasting print to use on the card base. So I'm going to take out this red tone-on-tone stripe. We'll save that for later, but I'm going to trim down the blue foiled background piece with the largest of the small stitch rectangle stackables, and then I'm going to bring in some Distress Oxide ink to just darken up the edges to make it look like it's nighttime, but I wanted there to be kind of light in the center from the Christmas tree farm. So I'm starting out with faded jeans, and then I'm going to bring in some chipped sapphire and just darken up the edges a bit. I don't want it to be too dark, but I definitely wanted it to have like a little soft center. So I'm going to blend out the chipped sapphire with the faded jeans once again, and then leave that center plain. And then I wanted it to look like it was snowing, so I'm going to bring in some Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White, mix up some of that, tap it off my finger, and get some splatter going on the background to just add to the foiled background that is already there. So I did get some bigger size drops. Some of those I did wipe away with a paper towel, but I'm going to set this aside to dry. In the meantime, I've also cut down 2 snowdrifts using the stitched hillside borders, and I am going to just add a little bit of shading to the top of those snowdrifts using the same colors that I used on the rest of the card. I'm just using 2 shades though. I'm using the E50 and then the E40. I didn't bother with the E51. And when I colored that little snowdrift that's going to sit on top of the treat cart, which is from the Car Critters Christmas add-on, I only used those shades as well. I softened the bottom with the Colorless Blender, and then I'm going to pop that smaller one into my Misty to stamp my sentiment. I'm using VersaFine Onyx Black ink to stamp Wishing You a Beautiful Holiday to go with our candy cane latte. I'm also going to do an insert for the inside of my card. I used the same die as the focal panel, and I'm going to stamp on the inside using some Noble Fur ink. And I'm doing the little stocking that of course has a bear hanging out of it for the little bear that's going to be on the front of our card, and a Merry Christmas. Now I'm ready to start assembling. I'm going to start with that insert and glue that to the inside of the card. It's going to leave a nice bold red outline around that, which really frames it up nicely. And then I just trimmed down the tone-on-tone red stripe with my paper trimmer to fit the entire card front. So I'll just glue that into place, make sure that the corners are nice and straight, and then I will bring in the background piece, and I'm going to glue that flat to the center of the card. So that's also going to leave a little border of the red tone-on-tone striped pattern paper. Just going to pull together our coloring. Once I've got that laid down, I'm going to add one of my snowdrifts, and I decided that I wanted it a little bit higher up on the scene, so I'm just going to glue it a little higher from the bottom, and that gap is going to be covered up by the smaller snowdrift, which I am going to pop up with some Scotch 3M foam tape. So I'll just line that up with the bottom 2 corners and then press that down into place. And I can bring in my images. I've added some foam tape to the back of my treat cart, but I am not going to remove that yet because I will need to use it as a placeholder to arrange my trees. So I did 3 of the taller trees, and then I've got 2 of the smaller trees, 1 decorated, 1 not. And I'm just figuring out the placement of everything, seeing how I want this to be laid out. And then once I am happy with that, I can start to glue everything down into place. So I'm adhering the trees on the right hand side first. I'm going to do the larger tree because that's going to be behind the treat cart and behind the decorated tree. And then I will add that decorated tree in front. And I decided to tuck that back behind the snowdrift so we actually don't see the tree skirt, but that's okay. There's going to be enough stuff kind of in front of that it didn't really matter. And then I will do the trees on the left-hand side, and I'm just making sure to stagger them so that they're all at slightly different heights to give the tree just a little bit more, dynamics, something different to look at. It's nice if everything is not just perfectly symmetrical. So those first 4 trees I glued flat to the card, but this 5th tree is actually going to go in front of the snowdrift. So I did have to add a little piece of foam tape to the top where that was laying over top of the other trees so that would be level. Then I am going to add my little coffee machine and my polar bear back behind the treat cart before I adhere that. I'm just using the sticky tape to get those stuck down, and then I'll add a little bit of liquid glue to the back of them. And that's also going to add some dimension to my scene because it's going to look like the polar bear and that coffee maker are kind of recessed into that treat cart. So once I have that all ready to go, I can go ahead and pop that down in the center of the card, and it's looking so cute already. It's really coming together just how I envisioned it. I'm going to decorate my treat cart next with that string of lights down toward the bottom center, and then I'm going to add that snowdrift to the top. That's from the Car Critters Christmas add-on, and it actually fits really perfectly on top of that treat cart. And then also the little Christmas wreath is from the Car Critters Christmas add-on. I'm going to add that right to the center and make sure that we have an even amount of the red stripes of the awning showing on either side. I'm going to put that sandwich board over on the left-hand side. I've got a pile of gifts. On the right, I'm going to have my polar bear and another gift. I actually decided to swap those gifts though, just because of the color palette. I wanted the white gift not to be next to the white polar bear. The stack of gifts had more color to it, so I just decided to switch those around. I'm going to add a little tiny piece of foam tape to support the hole there so that that sandwich board is level on the card. Just figuring out exactly where I want that, and then I can glue that down into place, and I'll also glue down that smaller gift. And on the right, I can glue down the stack of gifts, but I need to add a little piece of foam tape behind the polar bear's head since that will be above the popped up snowdrift. I'll use liquid glue for the lower part of him. I like to use just one level of foam tape on a card, especially if I know it's going to be going through the mail, because I just find that it's a lot easier and doesn't require extra stamps, extra money for shipping. I put the coffee cup in his hand, or the candy cane latte, and then right in front of him I'm going to have that little baby bear. So that's the one from the Coaster Critters, and he just works perfectly with these guys. I think they just look like a little family. In his paw, I'm going to add the candy cane, just overlap that over the latte mug, so they're kind of doing a little cheers there with their treats. And then I've got one little gingerbread man that I'm going to put in the paw of the polar bear in the treat cart. All that's left is to add a little bit of glitter to this card, and by a little bit, I usually tend to mean a lot, especially when it comes to Christmas cards. I mean, they just need the sparkle. So I'm adding it to my snowdrift, both the one that is on top of the treat cart and also to the snowdrifts down below, any part where I can see it. I put it on the star on the Christmas tree and on the lights on the string of lights, and I also put it on the white baubles of the Christmas tree. I didn't want to do all of them, but I thought the white ones would be a nice touch. I put it on my marshmallows and the ribbons of all of my gifts, and then I made myself stop there. I am going to pick up this card and tip it into the light so you can see all of that sparkle and shimmer between the stickles and the foiling on the pattern paper, and of course give you another peek at the inside. And that is going to finish this one up. I really love this one. Polar bears are one of my favorite animals, so anytime I can use them on a card, I'm so thrilled. So if you enjoyed it too, please be sure to hit that like button, leave me a comment down below. I love to hear from you. Subscribe if you haven't already, and ring that notification bell if you want to be alerted when I post new videos. The products I use will all be listed and linked in the description bar in case you'd like to pick up anything for yourself. And if you'd like to keep watching, here is day 9 of the previous 2 years of holiday card series. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I hope you had a good one, and I'll see you soon in the next. Bye-bye!